Japan dazzles the world with its bullet trains racing through neon-lit cities and robots seamlessly blending into daily life, a nation often seen as the very definition of technological leadership and futuristic innovation. The skyline of Tokyo, alive with color and energy, is a symbol of progress that inspires awe across the globe. But behind this dazzling high-tech image, a very different reality existed within the walls of government offices. One that seemed frozen in time, untouched by the rapid advances outside. Outdated technology, endless stacks of paper forms, and the ritual of stamping documents with the traditional hanko were still the norm, creating a stark contrast to the digital world outside. While private companies embraced cutting-edge innovation and digital transformation, public administration lagged far behind, clinging to old habits and manual processes. The gap between Japan's high-tech image and its low-tech bureaucracy was not just noticeable, it was becoming a growing crisis that threatened to undermine the nation's reputation. Government workers relied on decades-old software, clunky computers, and manual processes that had barely changed since the 20th century, making even simple tasks unnecessarily complicated. Tasks that should have taken minutes dragged on for days, as employees shuffled paper from desk to desk, waiting for approvals and signatures. This inefficiency wasn't just inconvenient for a few. It affected millions of citizens, forcing them to wait in long lines and navigate a maze of bureaucracy for even the simplest services. The digital divide exposed a fragile infrastructure beneath the surface, with aging equipment and outdated systems barely holding things together. The illusion of a fully digital Japan was about to be shattered, revealing just how vulnerable the system had become. Soon, a major scandal would erupt, exposing to the world just how far behind the government had fallen and forcing the nation to confront its digital divide head-on. The scandal didn't erupt with a cyber attack or a dramatic data breach splashed across headlines. Instead, it began quietly, with outdated office software that had been left behind by time. Critical government tasks, everything from processing benefits to tracking vital records, ran on old Excel files and mountains of paper forms. Data was entered, printed, and then re-entered by hand, creating endless opportunities for mistakes, duplication, and confusion. These fragile systems, patched together over decades, were never designed to handle the scale or importance of modern government work. Security updates were non-existent, technical support had long since vanished, leaving staff to struggle with glitches and breakdowns. Delays, errors, and lost information became routine as overworked employees tried to keep up with a system that was failing them. The government was managing modern responsibilities, like social services and public records, with tools that belonged in another era. As problems mounted, the public saw delays in benefits, mistakes in official records, and a growing sense of frustration. The scandal wasn't about corruption or theft. It was about a failure to modernize, a refusal to adapt to the digital age. The very tools meant to help civil servants do their jobs had become the biggest obstacle, slowing everything to a crawl. The digital unraveling had begun, exposing a crisis that no one in power could ignore any longer. Japan's digital reputation, once a source of national pride, was suddenly at risk, and the world was watching. Official reports revealed the true scale of the crisis. Auditors found key services, social security, taxes, public health, running on dangerously outdated systems. Data was scattered in incompatible formats, making coordination nearly impossible. During emergencies, this lack of integration crippled the government's response. Employees wasted countless hours on manual data entry and error correction. The inefficiency drained resources and morale. These were not isolated glitches, they were systemic failures. The government's digital foundation was crumbling. Reports warned of a looming collapse in essential services. Small fixes were no longer enough. Only a complete overhaul could restore public trust. For government employees, digital dysfunction was a daily struggle. Completing a single task meant logging into multiple incompatible systems. Information was typed and retyped, leading to constant errors. Workflows mixed paper, scans, and outdated databases. Employees invented risky workarounds using USB drives, private spreadsheets to cope. These shortcuts fragmented data and created security risks. Suggestions for improvement were lost in bureaucracy. Frustration and resignation set in among dedicated public servants. The system trapped talent in cycles of inefficiency. Technology meant to help had become a daily obstacle. The toll on morale and productivity was immense. The roots of stagnation lay in a tangled web of vendor contracts, each one locking the government into a rigid, inflexible relationship. These agreements, often signed years or even decades ago, became the invisible chains that bound progress. Each ministry commissioned its own custom software, tailored to its unique needs but built in isolation. Over time, this created a patchwork of systems that couldn't talk to each other, making collaboration nearly impossible and reinforcing bureaucratic silos. No central strategy existed, just a digital Tower of Babel, where every department spoke its own language and followed its own rules. The lack of coordination meant that even simple tasks became complex puzzles. As years passed, the original programmers moved on, taking their expertise with them. Only the vendors remained, holding the keys to these aging systems, but with only partial knowledge of how everything truly worked. The government became dependent, unable to switch systems or even access its own data without vendor assistance. This dependency grew deeper with every passing year, making change feel impossible. Vendors charged high prices for even minor changes, knowing there was no competition and no alternative. The cost of maintaining the status quo kept rising, but the government had little choice but to pay. It was more profitable for vendors to patch old systems than to build new ones. Upgrades were rare, and innovation was discouraged, as every change risked breaking something critical. Year after year, layers of code and quick fixes piled up, making the systems more complex and fragile. Each patch added new risks, and the original logic became harder to trace. The government paid dearly to keep these digital dinosaurs alive, pouring money into maintenance instead of modernization. The true cost was not just financial, but also the loss of efficiency and innovation. No one understood the whole system anymore. Knowledge was scattered, and even experts struggled to make sense of the tangled mess left behind. Real change was nearly impossible. Attempts at reform were met with confusion, resistance, and the ever-present fear of catastrophic failure. The vendor vortex trapped Japan in the past, creating a digital time capsule where progress was frozen and the future seemed out of reach. Progress stalled as costs soared, and the dream of a modern, efficient government faded further into the distance. Nothing captured Japan's digital woes like the fax machine. While the world moved to email, government offices clung to fax for legal reasons. Laws required physical documents and seals. Email wasn't valid, but fax was. This legal framework blocked digital progress. During COVID-19, doctors faxed case reports, overwhelming health centers. Manual sorting and data entry slowed the response and caused errors. The fax machine became a symbol of resistance to change. The problem wasn't technology, it was outdated rules and mindsets. True transformation required rethinking laws, not just buying new hardware. When the digital failures became public, outrage swept the nation. Citizens were shocked to see their tax money wasted on broken systems. Security fears grew. How safe was personal data in such outdated hands? The pandemic exposed the system's inability to respond in a crisis. Public anger turned into demands for accountability and reform. Politicians could no longer ignore the issue. The scandal became a national crisis, not just a technical one. Momentum for real change was unstoppable. The crisis wasn't about a lack of tech talent. Japan has world-class engineers. The real barrier was a risk-averse culture and rigid rules. Mistakes were career-ending, so innovation was stifled. Hierarchies blocked good ideas from reaching decision-makers. Procurement rules favored big, slow vendors over agile startups. Outdated regulations made adopting modern solutions nearly impossible. The problem was human, not technical. Change required tackling culture, rules, and mindsets. Skills were present, but the system tied their hands. Real reform meant confronting these deep-seated obstacles. Japan's office software scandal is a warning to the world. Surface-level modernity can hide deep dysfunction. True digital transformation is about people, laws, and culture, not just technology. New computers are useless if old rules demand paper and stamps. Honest evaluation is the first step to real change. Leaders must admit what's broken and listen to those on the front lines. Risk-taking and openness to failure are essential. The scandal forced Japan to confront its weaknesses. Now a new digital agency leads the push for reform. The lesson: real progress means changing habits, not just hardware.